despite how I feel. Oh, and I am depending on your word revealed.
I'm gonna give everybody a few, just about 1 minute to join. And then we'll get started in about 1 minute. I want to be very timely tonight. If you're tuning in via Periscope or Facebook, please share the video. Share. Share on Periscope here. Joining me or waiting for people to come in. Turn this down a little bit. For those of you that don't know who this is playing in the background, this is Psalmist Rain, and You Are Welcome. I had the pleasure of meeting her about a year ago, and I was a part of her. She had a worship webinar over the summer that was very powerful. And I learned a lot from. So if you don't have her CD, the Refresh Live, I believe she's recording a new one coming up soon, Refresh Live Part 2. All right, don't forget to share the video, and then people can they can just catch the replay. About 1 more minute. Hey, Lisa. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Make sure I got both cameras good. All right, let me turn this down. Pause this. You know, I love that song. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started. This is week 15 of Fearfully and Wonderfully. Yay! Woo, woo. Week 15. I'm really excited about what God is doing, the encouragement that has been happening, you know, for me, and then the encouragement for other women. You know, it's inspired other women to go forth and do their thing. So I thank God for that. And we're going to dive in. All right. So week 15, today's topic is His timing. Whose timing are we talking about? We're talking about God's timing. Tonight's subject, you know, as with all my videos, are geared towards, you know, encouraging single women. But tonight's topic, especially tonight's topic, can be applied all across the board, you know, for whatever situation you're going on in his life. But we're gonna focus on singles tonight. But share, you know, if this is blessing you, then make sure you share the video with someone else. Not for me, not for my own applause, but just to glorify God, so that it helps encourage somebody else. Okay. All right. So today is topic is His timing. Talk about God's timing. So nowadays, many believers, we think that our blessings are being delayed. So like if you're single and you're waiting on God, you're wondering when it's going to happen, and you think that that it's being delayed. But like my pastor said 1 week, he said maybe your blessing, or the answer to your blessing, is not delayed. It's just not coming when you thought it should come. That was a profound statement. I said, oh, wow. So I'm going to repeat that again. So maybe your blessing or the promise that God has for you is not delayed, but it's just not happening when you think it should happen. it's not happening quick enough, and you think it's delayed, that God's delaying your blessing. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes God is stretching our faith. He wants to see how much, we're going to believe on him. But other times, it's just God has a set time when things are going to happen. And because it doesn't happen when we think it should, we think it's delayed and we start to get discouraged. Okay? So God has a time and a season for everything to happen in our life. And we're going to go, as with every video, I always have scripture in the word. We're going to go to Ecclesiastes 3, and I'm going to read verses 1 through 8. This is the NLT Bible, the NLT version. So I'm just going to read through this real quick. This is a time for everything. Again, this is Ecclesiastes 3, verses 1 through 8. For everything there is a season, for a time for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to turn away, a time to search and a time to quit searching, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be quiet and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time for peace. That was Ecclesiastes 3, verses 1 through 8. And again, I'm going to read the Life Application translation of that because I feel like it's profound. It says, timing is important. All the experiences listed in the verses that I just read are important at certain times. The secret to peace with God is to discover, accept, and appreciate God's perfect timing. The danger is to doubt or resent God's timing. This can lead to despair, rebellion, or moving ahead without his advice. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a season. You're single and you're waiting on God and you're wondering when it's going to happen. There is time. There is a time that God has for it, and a set time. We have to have faith in God, and we have to know that things will happen in God's time and when it's the right season for it. Okay, so biblical example of that, a story that is familiar to a lot of us believers, Abraham and Sarah in Genesis. So I'm not going to read all of it because it's quite lengthy, but the entire story, Abraham and Sarah, for those who do not know, is found in Genesis chapters 15 through 18. Okay, so this is a story of Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar, however you want to pronounce it. I believe it's Hagar. All right, so quick summary of the story of Abraham and Sarah and Hagar. So God promised Abraham at the time, I think before he promised him, it was Abram. He changed his name to Abraham. That's another story. But so God promised that Abraham would be the father of many nations, right? So he has the promise. He's going to be the father of many nations. Sarah, his wife, cannot have children. So she gets the brilliant idea, oh, wait, I have a handmaiden. I have a servant, an Egyptian servant named Hagar. Then, well, maybe, I can have kids, through her, and the Abraham's seed, will be continued through her, and it'll be happen that way. So Abraham, goes into Hagar, and she conceives a son. So this was not what God originally intended. So Hagar becomes pregnant. She conceives, and we all know that his name was Ishmael. But before she gives birth, there was animosity from Sarah against Hagar. She became jealous. There was a lot of things going on there. And had Sarah waited on God, that animosity, that would have never happened. Things happened out of God's timing. So y'all know that Sarah did eventually conceive. I believe in scripture it says it was about 10 years later after all this, between 10 and 13 years later after Hagar had given birth. But she did eventually conceive a child. And we all know who that is. But we have to realize in this scripture that had Sarah listened to God, and had they listened and trusted and believed what God said, the animosity between Hagar and Sarah would have never happened. And then we all know what happens with Ishmael, and they become warring against each other, those nations. So I want to read Genesis 16 and 13 in the Life Application version, it says Sarah took matters into her own hands by giving Hagar to Abram. Like Abraham, she had trouble believing God's promise that was apparently directed specifically towards Abraham and Sarah. Out of his lack of faith came a series of problems. This invariably happens when we take over God for God, trying to make his promise come true through efforts that are not in line with his specific directions. In this case, time was the greatest test of Abraham and Sarah's willingness to let God work in their lives. Sometimes we too must just simply wait. We have to just wait. When we ask God for something and have to wait, we can be tempted to take matters into our own hands and interfere with God's plans. I truly believe that one of the reasons why the divorce rate is so high in the church is one of the reasons because there are people that did not wait on God for their mate, for their spouse. They didn't wait on God. They didn't believe God. Women became desperate, and they married the first person that probably gave them attention. I don't know what happened. I don't want to assume, but that's one of the reasons why, in my opinion, one of the reasons why divorce is so high among believers in the church is because we have women that did not wait on God for their spouse, or maybe they were waiting on God and somebody came and they were the counterfeit, and they thought it was the one that God had for them. They prayed, they fasted, and they thought that's who it was. But at any rate, we have to trust God's timing in a matter, and it's in a situation. So I have a little visual. Those that know me know that I love visual things. I want to have a little illustration. So we have a clock here. This is time. This represents time. This represents our time. Okay. The clock is ticking. I put batteries in it to make sure it was working for y'all. All right. So we have us, humans. We exist in time. I don't know if this is showing up backwards or anything, but it says us. We exist in time. This is where we exist as human beings. Okay. Here's God. Well, what we perceive, what we think God is like is this size. We want God to fit in our time, in our timing. This is what we want God to do. We want things to happen in our time, in our world, in our season. We want God to be like, okay, here I am, God, and here you have to be. We want him to fit in this little circle. We normally say fit in the box. We want him to fit in this little box. And we get impatient when God doesn't do things, when we think that he should do things, because we are seeing him like this in our time. But I'll show you that this is not where we exist. This is not where God exists. So we take this off. God is actually bigger. God is actually bigger than what we perceive. This is God. Well, of course, obviously, this is an illustration. He is not this small thing that we put inside of a box. No. God is bigger than our minds could ever conceive. He doesn't even fit inside of our time. Okay? God does not fit inside of our time. He exists outside of our time. So he is existing around all of our time, and what we thought was where God should exist. He's bigger than that. He actually covers the whole thing. He's bigger than what we perceived it to be. So what is the illustration saying? God is bigger than your problems. God is bigger than what you think is impossible, because you need to take God out of our timing. This is not where God exists. He doesn't exist in our world. He doesn't exist in our time. He exists outside of our time. He's bigger than that. So if you are, you're single and you're waiting on God for marriage, and you're saying, God, where are you? You have to get out of the mind frame. This is where you are. This is where your mind is. You're saying God is here in your timing. And as a female, those thoughts come into your head. You're thinking about your biological clock ticking. Some of you, might be getting older. You're like, oh, I'm getting older. But again, we're in God's timing. You need to take it out of God's timing. And you have to look at, eternity. Yes, you have to look at eternity. Look at what God is. He is around us. He is outside of what we perceive as time. So that was my visual representation right there, visual example. Hopefully somebody that helped somebody. So again, my scopes are not quick. This one is the quick one. We're talking about his timing. And I just want to review. You have to trust God's plan. Trust God, first of all. Trust his plan for your life. Trust his time. And I want to help the single women, because I'm in this with you together. I'm a single woman too, waiting on God. And I share my experiences with you because I want you to be encouraged. I want you to know that you are not alone in your season of singleness while you're waiting. And that, I want to encourage you, let you know that God has a plan. Don't give up. Don't give up hope. Don't give up on God. Help you out with an answer to a question that many of us get. Single women, you're so nice. Why are you still single? You're single? Why? So your answer could be, thanks, Laura. Your answer could be, well, it's just not my time. It's just not my turn yet. Okay. That should shut things down quickly. You don't have to explain any further, but be happy for people that when it is their time, be genuinely happy for them, because it's their time. It's their season for marriage. And then when your time comes, you're going to want people to be happy for you. Truth be told. All right. So again, people ask you the question, why are you still single? Your answer, it's not my time. It's not my turn. It's not my season. And fully embrace, fully enjoy the season of singleness you are in right now. Go out, have fun, and enjoy life. All right. Go and travel, enjoy life, and have fun. All right. So that's it for tonight. This was real quick. If this blessed you, share the video with someone else, and hopefully it will be an encouragement to somebody else. Again, share for not for me, not for accolades for me, but for God. For all the glory goes to God. And we're going to join me back here again. We're doing this every week Saturday, or every Sunday at 7:00. Until you hear differently from me, or until I hear differently from God. This is what we're doing. So single ladies, be encouraged. Know that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and God has a plan and a purpose for your life. God bless you, love you, and good night.